I mean, no.
I got the catch can for son for you.
Oh, and why did you come with him? He's the one who does agriculture.
No. The agree writer.
So you write on what? Yes.
Listen, convert and use it. That is.
Leta kunia. Leta kuja. Oya. Leta kunia bwana.
Hello, how are you? Fine.
This last quarter, Simon, it has actually seen a significant dip. I think we have seen as much as 30% dip in the market, and this is primarily driven by the fact that there is a liquidity crunch. People affordability has significantly gone down, and we are seeing this across the industry that demand has been subdued. We have seen how supermarkets, footfalls in supermarkets has significantly reduced. So purchasing power is also much lower under these COVID times. I think people's incomes have been curtailed, and that is also translating into their purchasing habits, and even the basic essentials are curtailed in their shopping baskets as well. So yes, we have seen a significant, but unlike many other businesses, it's not been as drastic, but still I would say it's significant drop in demand. If you look at the numbers, I mean, if we look at the basic staples, the largest consuming staple is maize. We probably consume about 4.2 million tons of maize every year. The next one probably down the line comes wheat, and we're probably consuming between 2.2 to 2.5 million tons of wheat. Next comes rice, and rice we are, as a country, we are probably consuming about 500,000 metric tons. So there's a significant difference in terms of consumption compared to the other two major staples, but it's growing. The consumer trends are that what we have seen is that wheat and rice are growing, whereas maize is stagnating. As the urbanization is happening, and as people are moving more from the rural to urban areas, eating habits are changing, and more of we're seeing more of this kind of staples like rice and wheat being consumed. The expectation is that in the next 10 years we might see the demand for rice grow from about 500,000 metric tons to about 1.2 to 1.3 million metric tons. Based on the population growth plus the urbanization. Right, so our primary source of rice is actually from the Moya Rice Irrigation Scheme. That scheme constitutes about 26,000 acres of land which is farmed, and we work directly and indirectly with over 5,000 farmers. We also worked through the cooperative, the Moya Multi-Purpose Rice Cooperative Growers Society, which in itself has over 3,000 to 4,000 farmers as their members. So we are working directly or indirectly with these farmer groups and to support them to ensure that we are creating a market for what they're growing. Grows about 100,000 metric tons in totality. So that's about 20% of what our annual demand is. The rest of the 80% is all imported, either from Pakistan, India, Vietnam, Thailand. So we have a lot of opportunity to expand our rice production, and this does not goes in Moya but across the whole country. We have several rice irrigation schemes which we need to revive and expand. If I talk about Moya itself, I mean right now as I mentioned, there are 26,000 acres which is under cultivation, and there is an additional 10,000 acres which can be cultivated. And over and above that, over the last 5-6 years, there has been a lot of talk about water. Water is the primary reason why there's not sufficient water for them to expand. So the government has taken the initiative to expand the Thiba Dam, which would then enable the farmers there to get water year round and to be able to do 2 crops of either rice or rice and something else. And unfortunately, it's been kind of packed with a lot of, the expansion has also been hampered with a lot of issues relating to land and compensation which has been going. And we are encouraging that if we can have this dam being built out quickly, it's going to benefit this rice farmers in Moya. We have schemes in West Kano, Ahero, Bunyala, Hola. We also had what the president had initially launched, the 1 million acre Galalu scheme, but unfortunately that has also not really pulled off. But I think in essence there is a lot of potential for Kenya to be self-sufficient in its rice production. We can be able to grow and produce our own rice, 500,000 metric tons and growing. What we need to do is kind of put in place some of the measures like I said, and at the same time improve the yields for these farmers. There's also the initiative around what's called non-irrigated Highland rice, which is the Nirika rice. This is something which has been developed in West Africa, and it relies on rainfall. So in certain semi-arid locations where you only have not sufficient rainfall and you don't have water as from rivers, you can still grow rice. And I think rice is going to be a very staple. It's a good source of carbohydrates. So I think we need to ensure that we become self-sufficient in our rice production. We use and it goes to the retailer. They need to also ensure that they're storing in the right conditions before they sell it out to the consumer. And then once the consumer is buying, we need to ensure that they're storing in their cupboards in the right manner, or in their pantries, so that it does not again develop aflatoxin. So I think everyone has a role to play. We all have to play our roles. We endeavor as Capwell Industries, and we have got very enhanced food safety systems within our company, including HACCP, to ensure that, and then of course we have got labs, very modern labs, where we are testing at every stage in the process to ensure that at least whatever we are taking in as raw material and whatever we are selling as a finished product is meeting to the standards on aflatoxin. But I'm glad to also say that I'm part of an initiative which is a government-led initiative, that a private sector and government-led initiative, where we have taken this conversation of aflatoxin with a lot more seriousness, and it's an interministerial kind of intervention through the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Agriculture, together with the private sector, to find solutions for this aflatoxin. We need to understand where this problem starts from, and probably this is more of a problem not with rice. We don't encounter aflatoxins with rice, but where we encounter aflatoxin with products like maize and groundnuts in Kenya, and we have to really understand where this problem starts from. And the problem actually starts from the farm, from the soils. What is aflatoxin? Aflatoxin is a fungus which actually which makes certain toxins, and the toxins are the ones which are harmful to the consumer. These are spores, which are actually the spores from the fungi are the ones which are lying within our soils. So the problem starts from our farm. We need to deal with this problem first of all with our farmers. The government through Calro has developed what is called AflaSafe, and if you broadcast that AflaSafe, it actually tries to mitigate the toxin-causing fungi and actually replace it with good fungi. We dry it mechanically through dryers, and then we store it in proper storage conditions. Now this will be the starting point from where aflatoxins will not develop. Then the next stage is we have our logistics, our brokers. They might be storing this maize for too long in wet conditions, and of course aflatoxin is again going to develop there. So that's another area where we need to ensure that we are educating our brokers, our traders, to ensure that they're adequately storing the maize. And then finally, when it comes to our doorsteps, by that time it's too late. It's either it has developed aflatoxin or it's aflatoxin free. As a company, we do thorough checks at our doorstep. We do thorough checks and ensure that we only take in aflatoxin within the prescribed limits. But whatever we reject, we also need to encourage to ensure that that doesn't find its way back into the food chain. And this is where the problem is. The moment that maize is out in the market, if I will reject, somebody else might accept, and it gets back into the food chain. And we need to have alternative sources for the high aflatoxin maize, so that that trader or that farmer doesn't lose out on having to discard that maize.
Maybe through the farmers or through other channels, maybe boost up your income.
Yes, so I think we are very cognizant of the fact that if the farmers are not going to earn their fair share of their hard work, then of course it can't be a sustainable kind of a proposition. And that is why we work directly with the farmer societies, because then we know that whatever we are paying eventually is actually going to, in one form or another, is going to the farmers. And we actually pay good prices for paddy rice, white rice to the societies, so that they can then further on be able to distribute a good bonus to their farmers. What I find, and of course the other side is that you also have brokers who play a role, and the brokers are playing a role because there is a void and that void is being filled by brokers because we don't have the logistics. They play the role of ensuring that they become the aggregators of the crop from the small scale farmers, and then they actually aggregate, they actually dry the crop and store it and then deliver it to us. So as much as and possibly in between they also earn their margin. Now the debate obviously is that if that is a reasonable margin, then the farmers are going to get a better price for their crop. It is as millers, we are dictated by two things in terms of the price we pay. We want to pay the best price, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we cannot be uncompetitive vis-a-vis what is imported. So if, of course, there is a protection given to farmers, there is a 35% duty on imported rice. So there is sufficient protection for farmers for them to get adequate price to make it commercially viable for the farmers to farm. And for us, we can't give extremely high price, then we become uncompetitive and will allow importation of the imported rice to make us very uncompetitive to sell our local rice. For COVID, I would have said that we had expansion plans over the next 10 years, which would have, without giving any accuracy in numbers, but it would have run into a few billions. And we still are very confident that we can continue with our growth plans. It would easily run into 5 to 10 billion of investments. But of course, given the right conditions, it's still possible. We have to wait and see how the conditions are going to fare out. The next 6 months are very critical to see in terms of COVID where we are as a country going to be, where our marketplaces are going to be, also whether we are going to be able to open up and become competitive and be able to then expand our market to beyond Kenya. If all those conditions can be met, and we are striving to kind of negotiate all these different deals, including the US trade deal that we are doing, there is active, the Africa free trade, then we'll expand our markets and there will be opportunity to expand here. So I'm still very hopeful. I'm not, even after COVID, I think that there is room for expansion. And we can definitely see that the biggest challenge we have, and as I mentioned, is that I have a challenge of raw material. If I could be able to have twice as much paddy rice, I'm happy to kind of expand. So what the constraint is on the supply side, and we need to kind of deal with the supply side first of all. And that's what the farmers are crying. They are crying for a market linkage, and we are wondering, we are on the other side crying for the exact opposite of that we don't get sufficient produce.
No, exactly. I mean, this is what I eat and breathe every day.
Yeah.
But it's and as long as people understand, then I think what happens is that we put the right message across, and everyone needs to know what that right message is. It's not about my profitability or about my